Hey everybody, Jessica Levinson back in for Harry to talk about the E. Jean Carroll trial. Now, both attorneys have closed. They have finished all of the arguments, all of the evidence is in, and now this case is with the jury. So, what happened and what do we expect to happen? Well, I think as a lot of you who are watching know, this case really centers on accusations that E. Jean Carroll, journalist E. Jean Carroll, made against the former president. And those accusations were that he raped me. I mean, at the bottom line, E. Jean Carroll is saying Trump raped me in the mid 1990s. The defamation suit comes in because he said now a number of different times, no, I didn't. Number one, she's not my type, which I want to talk about that in a moment. Number two, it never happened. She's just trying to sell books. This is all a con job. It's all a hoax. And so the defamation in this case is based on his denial. The allegedly defamatory statements are when he said, I didn't, she's not my type, this is a hoax, she's just trying to make money, it's the biggest con job of all times. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing, etc., etc. In this case, there's also a claim dealing with battery, which involves sexual assault here, because New York recently changed their law and they allowed for certain adult survivors of sexual abuse, basically an extra window, an extra year to bring claims in civil cases that are otherwise time barred in both criminal cases and civil cases. So that really brings us to this particular case. And it lasted about a week. E. Jean Carroll herself took the stand. She spoke at length and she withstood cross-examination, I think, very well. And the former president did not come to testify. He did not put on any witnesses. He's under no obligation to do so. And his entire defense really was just trying to undercut the credibility of Carroll and the witnesses who testified on her behalf. So in a way, yes, this case is a he said, she said, but in a way it's not. And I think that E. Jean Carroll's attorney, Robbie Kaplan, who I've mentioned before, I think is really a legal superstar in a lot of ways and was the attorney who argued for the overturning of the Defense of Marriage Act, which ultimately she was successful in that case. What she said in oral arguments, or when she said in closing arguments, was this isn't he said, she said. It's she said, and then she said, and then she said, and then she said, versus he said. That you would have to ignore not only E. Jean Carroll, but you'd have to ignore all of those who spoke on her behalf under oath. And that you'd have to ignore the psychological expert that she came forward with. Now, Trump's entire claim here was she's not believable. And he did that and he argued that in ways that I think might sound very familiar when it comes to sexual assault cases. Many of them, I think, centered around this idea of blaming the victim, that she didn't respond in a way that we would, quote unquote, expect a trauma victim to respond. And when you look back at this trial, I think what we find is what we always find. Somebody who is a human being and therefore an imperfect witness. And in fact, in my view, that bolsters her credibility in a lot of places because she does say things like, I can't remember exactly what happened on that day, or these are things that I can remember and these are things that I can't remember. And if you were going to make a story like this up from whole cloth, it seems to me that you would say, no, I'm entirely clear on these specifics. So to get back to the closing arguments, it was really Carroll's attorney saying, look at all the women who came forward and said, either E. Jean Carroll told me this, or something similar happened to me, or the expert who said, no, this can be how trauma victims respond. And then look on the other side to the former president who has lied and lied and lied again. And I thought that was enormously powerful. What the Trump's attorneys did really is, I think, the best he can do under the circumstances, which is just to try and poke holes in Carroll's story and in her recollection and find inconsistencies. Now, what's the jury's job here? the jury, because it's a federal jury, has to come to a unanimous verdict. But this is not a criminal case. So the standard is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. The standard is a preponderance of the evidence. So they have to find that things happened in a way that is more likely than not. That's preponderance of the evidence, more likely than not. So it is a threshold that I think they absolutely could cross in this case. We're going to obviously watch to see, do they send any questions to the judge? And ultimately, of course, we are looking for what is their finding in this case. So I hope that provides you with a little bit of background on what we saw during the trial, what the trial was about, which I've talked about before a little bit, and what the jury is going to go back and look at. As a reminder, for defamation, you need a false statement of fact. You need that false statement of fact to be made with a certain level of intent, in this case, reckless disregard of the truth, malice. You need the statement to cause damages. And I think all of those elements are here. So I'm going to be really curious to see what the jury does, and we'll bring you the latest when we hear it.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.